My name is Patrick Guggen. I'm a Senior Product Manager at CyberRes in the Identity and Access Management team.
And I'm Kristen Riley. I'm also a Senior Product Manager at CyberRes in Identity and Access Management.
And today, Kristen and I are going to talk about how SaaS expansion adds to the power of NetIQ's comprehensive Identity and Access Management platform. And we're going to talk about the ability to extend your existing identity management investment with SaaS-based capabilities. At Micro Focus, we provide a complete identity and access management solution portfolio with comprehensive identity and access management capabilities unified by identity. And we have customer identity and access management solutions, we have workforce identity and access management solutions, and these are built on top of a very strong portfolio of products, including access management, identity governance and administration, and privilege management. And all of these capabilities are delivered on top of this incredibly solid foundation of identity that our customers have been using and benefiting from for many years. And what we're in the process of doing now is expanding the solution portfolio to support on-premises, SaaS, and hybrid deployments. And today we want to discuss how our current identity management customers can maintain their current infrastructures while moving to SaaS and taking advantage of all the new capabilities that are available. So from a SaaS perspective, we're ready. We have products in market. We have amazing capabilities that you can take advantage of today. And are you ready to start using them? And really, it's on your timeline. You can continue to leverage your existing on-premises identity management capabilities and identity governance capabilities for as long as you choose. But you can also now start to move some of those capabilities or extend those capabilities with SaaS services, and that allows you to start your journey to SaaS in a way that's manageable and on your timeline. So you can move to full SaaS if and when you choose, incrementally and gradually. And we think this is the smart way to move identity and access management capabilities to SaaS, or your identity and access management infrastructure. It gives you that flexibility and the power to do the things that are right for your company and the timeline that's right for your company. And this allows you to really maximize the value of your existing investment. So you can continue to benefit from your identity and access management solution. You don't have to do any kind of a modification of that or change of that, but you can start to add value. And then over time, as you start to see the value of moving some capabilities or all those capabilities to SaaS and getting the economic benefits of a SaaS solution, you can do so. And that's what we're here to talk about. And this approach, we think, minimizes risk. So it avoids this monolithic move, trying to move your entire infrastructure to SaaS and all the risk that's involved with that. So you can avoid complex policy migrations, or you can move them onto, manage them, make them more manageable as you gradually move capabilities, gradually migrate policies if needed. You can avoid potential disruptions from things like the differences between connections between an on-premises version of an application and the SaaS version of the application and so forth. So this approach allows you to really handle things in an incremental, gradual way on a priority basis. This also allows you to simplify SaaS transition projects. This hybrid approach continue to less disruptive. You have less problems. You can solve smaller problems incrementally and get you to SaaS. And so we think that by leveraging your existing investment, it really will save you a lot of money and a lot of pain on this journey to SaaS. From a SaaS availability perspective, we are, as I mentioned earlier, we're in market today with identity governance and advanced authentication. Those are available now for identity management customers or any customers to start taking advantage of. We're seeing rapid customer adoption of people wanting these capabilities is starting to move and advance and extend their capabilities using SaaS. We're introducing access management and cloud identity services and capabilities in 2022. You'll see some of those capabilities coming out throughout the year. And then identity intelligence, you'll also see some of those capabilities through this year, but the full capabilities for identity analytics will be coming in 2023. So I wanted to talk about one of the products that we have now that's available in SaaS Identity Governance, and I want to talk about extending your investment in Identity Manager, your on-premise investment, with these powerful new capabilities and what you get by doing that. How you can extend and improve some of the capabilities you have in Identity Manager. And the first one is this ability to gain enterprise-wide visibility into your users and their access rights. And this is really answering the question about who has access to what. in your organization. Identity Manager typically has a smaller subset of your applications. The ones that are critical are the ones that are very advantageous to automate, that are connected to your identity management system. But this allows you in governance, you can bring all that information into governance, but you can also add any other applications, whether they're SaaS or on-premises, into your governance model to get a much more full, comprehensive picture. And you also get a business lens or a business view of that data. The ability to have business users understand that data, see that data, translate that data into business terminology. This really provides you with the ability to have a very robust entitlement, identity, and application catalog of all of the accesses in your organization. We also provide the ability in governance to model user access and least privileged user access using business roles and access policies. And this really provides the ability to define who should have access. So we give you the visibility to know who has access. We also give you the ability to define from a business perspective who should have access. And that establishes the baseline for governance and for compliance and for security. Once we know these two things, we can start to add processes and controls around that. And controls is another advantage of identity governance. We provide the ability to define and implement or put into place both preventative and detective controls to basically enforce policy or to make sure that you don't violate policy. And those include things like separation of duty, where we can define whether or not someone should have access, more than have access that should be prevented from people having access that would potentially enable fraudulent activity or security violations. We include the ability to do access certification to have people review access and make sure that people have the right access. We have controls where you can detect if unusual or anomalous access has been granted and immediately take action. So with all of these controls, once you've detected that a problem or a violation or an exception to policy has occurred, you can trigger a remediation action. And those remediation actions include things like a micro-certification or immediately review this access, or an actual provisioning request that can be sent to remove the access if needed, or just notify someone that something's unusual, that a red flag has occurred. So it's a very powerful capability that builds off of the visibility, the access modeling that allows you to then put these controls in place. And that's something that you really don't have with identity management on premises. And the ability, the next capability would be to leverage analytics for insight and decision support. Now that you have all this data in one place, and you have all the policies that are established, you can start to really dig into that data through Governance Insight, which is a capability of the governance solution. And that lets you really understand much more, get in more detail, look for patterns in the access, helps you to really understand your data and make better decisions. And from a decision support perspective, we provide information directly to the business decision maker, whether that's in an access review process or an access approval process, to help those people really understand who the user is, what the application or the permissions are, and whether or not this is appropriate access for that person, to help guide the business decision maker along to make the right decision for access. And of course, all of this integrates with your on-premises IDM seamlessly, and that's our hybrid story, where all of your information that's in Identity Manager can easily be collected into governance. In governance, the decisions that you make in governance can easily be sent to your identity management system to actually take action on them. So you can, when you make a decision to remove someone's access, you can make a provisioning request and take advantage of all your existing provisioning capabilities in Identity Manager to make that happen. And then we'll also consume, when we collect data back into governance from Identity Manager, we'll be able to verify that that access has actually been removed as appropriate. And then finally, the providing multi-factor authentication. With identity governance, it comes with our advanced authentication capabilities, or at least the core capabilities around single-use password. Those are provided with the identity governance product, and you can take advantage of those. You can also now, once you've established that and you have multi-factor authentication, if you want to use it for other applications with other factors, you can expand that to add those capabilities very easily. The other capability I want to talk about is the other SaaS capability is SaaS Identity. And this, as I mentioned, is something we're working on. It'll be available throughout the year, and it's currently in development, will be available throughout the year. And this is really a set of new SaaS identity capabilities, identity lifecycle workflows, automated provisioning, and password management So that's another set of critical capabilities that you can start to move from your on-premises solution into SaaS if you choose to. And again, you can do this incrementally. So now you don't have to do everything at once. You start to just enable the capabilities that you need on a priority basis. And you can do this so when you choose. The on-premises solution will be there. You can continue to take advantage of that for as long as you need to. But the SaaS solution also, when it makes sense for you to do that, you'll be able to do that. And we know this is a big decision. Moving your identity and access management infrastructure to SaaS is not something that you do without really considering the impact of that. So we want to know what your needs and concerns are. We have our ideas portal, which is our community site, and you can go in there and you can submit concerns, ideas, enhancement requests, and so forth to that portal. So that, briefly, because I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for the demonstration, is discussing where we're at with SaaS, what those opportunities and value proposition is for customers, and now Kristen will now show the demo. Hey, Kristen, can you take it from here?
Sure. Right now we're taking a look at the catalog view. And the catalog, let's use applications for an example. But the catalog shows you a clear picture of who has access to what. So one of the things we can see here in the catalog is that we're actually collecting information from multiple applications. So you can see we've collected from Identity Manager, and we've also collected from these other applications that are outside of Identity Manager, but provide a broader governance view across your organization. So I'm going to select an application here and drill in for a minute just to give us an idea of the next level of detail that we can get. Here you can see information about how this application is authorized, who can request this application for other people or for themselves, what approval policy this abides by, what approval do you have. In this case, the manager needs to approve access to it. You can see who the administrators are, the delegated administrators or application owners, and more of the general detail. But you also then see the relationship of this application to the other systems and the assets in your organization. So here are the permissions granted by this application. And in here I can see details about each of the permission. They're shown in a comprehensive way with a business perspective, so it's readable. You can see the risk that these permissions have relatively to other assets and the number of users that have them. On the account side, you can see the types of accounts that are within the application, who has an account, and what those account details are, and whether those accounts have risk to them as well. You can see information about how the application is fulfilled. We're actually going to go through fulfillment later, so we'll come back to that. You can see risk factors that tie into how risky is this application in terms of, does it increase your liability or your vulnerability to not passing a compliance audit. And then you can see whether there are custom forms used in the application. If you are doing a request for the application or approval, are there certain things that you need to add to the request form for the particular application? So it gives you a lot more information about applications in general, the people and the relationships to that application. And then similar to applications, we can take a look at identities. And identities, you get additional information. You can see start date. There's other attributes of a user. You can select the different attributes to show here. And then when you go in the details, you can see not only the attributes that make up that user and where they came from, which system they were collected from and unified in to create this user, But you can also see the groups, permissions, accounts that the user has. You can see that whether they have access to technical roles. These are the technical roles that Abby has. You can see whether they have access to business roles, and the business roles based on their identity and the organizations that they're in. You can see whether they have violations of a separation of duties policy and risk factors for the user that contribute to their overall risk score. And you can also see their certification status. So this allows you to see when were their permissions reviewed and what were the decisions made in that review. And that helps you to really get a nice view for what's going on in the system in relation to this particular user and how that user is following the policies that you've set into place.
Yeah, that's really great. So now it's obvious we have a much clearer view of who has access to what, something we really didn't get that clear view in identity management alone. So governance really added a lot here where we can really see a lot about, again, that primary question we have when we're trying to maintain compliance and security is who has access to what. So now that we've done that, I guess the next thing to consider would be, should those people have that access that they have? And, in defining that from a business perspective, can you show us how we can use business rules and access policies to start to define
Absolutely.
that access
So
model?
in the policy area, we have the ability to set controls and policies for how we want the system to behave in certain situations. And the business roles allow us to manage who's coming in and out of the system and what we want them to have authorization for. So there are two aspects to business roles, and the roles allow them to see both who should be in a role. Here's a membership expression to show how this role, for example, is defined. This role is defined for people who are in the title. They have a title of America's Sales Representative, and they're in the Sales Americas Department, and their organization is information technology. And if you define a role in a dynamic way like this, you could define them statically as well, but defining them dynamically like this lets you react to people coming in and out of these elements of the role. So as soon as someone meets that criteria, they can be put into the role. So you can also set which authorizations are allowed by this role. It can be permissions, technical roles, applications. These are the various types of authorizations, just to give you an idea. But the business role gives you the granularity to determine whether whether something that's authorized by that role is mandatory or whether it's optional, and whether it's automatically granted when you become a member of the role or whether it's something that's granted as a pre-authorization that you can then request later if you need it, but you don't necessarily have to have it. So that pre-authorization reduces your overhead in doing requests when you're trying to request access at a later time. You don't need a second tier of approval for that. So this combination, when I make these decisions in the roles, defines who is an America's sales representative, what are they allowed access to, and these are dynamic policies, so we can configure them easily. They can respond to changes in the system. And you'll see up here there are other options for lifecycle management because this is a policy itself and it's a compliance control. It has a life cycle of its own. So you have the approval policies for the roles. You can actually mine roles if based on attributes that users have. And then you have the operations aspect of that. So the business roles are one of the very powerful compliance controls that you have in identity governance.
Okay, great. So now we know who has access through the visibility value, and we know if that access is appropriate using business roles and access policies. And so the next thing is, what can we do now that we know that who should have access and who has access and if they should have access? What can we do with that information? How can we put controls in place to ensure that only the right people have access to critical systems and applications?
Sure, we
you
have
show us some of
different
that?
levels of controls. So there are SOD, separation of duty controls. We have data controls and other processes like access review and certification. All of these act as different levels of compliance control. I'll just give you a quick preview of some of these. So separation of duty control, for example, allows you to put constraints on if somebody has access to something that's mutually exclusive from another. For example, here, you cannot be a person who can both create a new consultant and approve consultant payments because you're trying to avoid fraud in your system. So that you can see the conditions here. A user would violate those if they have both of these capabilities. And what the SOD control allows you to do is to essentially instill a process that will raise this as a violation, and also the governance system will prevent you from requesting that item, or during a review it will provide context to say this item, if you grant this to this person, may result in the separation of duty violation. Another type of control that we have, these are detective controls, are called data comparison policies or data policies. And we have policies you can set in governance to react to certain actions or activities that happen or when data changes in the system. This can be set on publication or collection. And you can choose what the remediation action is that happens on this. For example, in an account certification case, if a certification's expired and the collection detects that your expiration happened, then you would want to kick off a certification of that particular user's access to make sure that we can recertify them. It doesn't run the whole certification just for the specified users that are not following policy at that point in time. So these controls are very helpful. You can set different options for sending emails, making a change request in a connected system, or performing a micro-certification when that happens. And you can select which reviews are performed. Those are the data controls. And then the other type of controls that we have are access certifications or reviews. So if we look at our reviews that are in progress, we have, here's for an example, an identity management permission and role assignment review. And the review is really controlling periodic certification of access and making sure people only have the right information for the right times and over time that you're reviewing that. So here in this view, we see the review owner who can select and see who is part of the review. These are the people that are taking part doing the review activities. They can also see all the review items that are in progress and any actions that are taken on the review items. If I have a review item that's assigned to me, I can take action here. And here we can see how this got into my queue and the activities I can take in action. And up at the top, I have a nice summary of how many things are in the review, what the progress is of those, and you can see once the review itself has been done, it goes to owner approval. In this case, this review is due within a day. So a lot of information you get here to provide you details about who needs to review what and how to control that aspect of it.
Oh yeah, that's really great. And this ability that we have with identity governance to be able to enforce these governance policies, right? To be able to detect whether there's violations or exceptions to these policies, and then allow business users to make decisions about how to correct those violations. It's really critical for maintaining compliance, improving security. So it's a really powerful thing that you get when you add Identity Governance SaaS to Identity Manager on premises. So in as far as Identity Manager, talking about that, can you talk about how Identity Governance integrates with Identity Manager on premise?
Absolutely. So we've been talking about the governance decisions that are made and making sure that the business is saying who should have access, right? And then it goes to the fulfillment step. And on the fulfillment side, we have many options to fulfill to the connected systems. And specifically, you could fulfill to Identity Manager in several different ways. If you're an SE customer and you have entitlements, you can send your fulfillment back through those entitlements. We have automated directly through Identity Manager and then custom Identity Manager workflows. You can also do manual fulfillments and other outside of Identity Manager here, but it really lets you leverage your existing IDM infrastructure and all of the connectivity that you have in that infrastructure, so you are able to connect into identity governance and then send that information back to the systems that are already connected up through Identity Manager. There's some granularity here that also lets you set different types of modifications to different systems. So some might go to a service desk, some might go through Identity Manager, but there's some flexibility in the fulfillment configuration to allow you to really meet your business needs and have effectiveness in getting that fulfillment done. And then another complete, if we look at the fulfillment status, you can also, when governance connects the data back in again, we can do a verification. We call this the closed loop verification. That allows you to see these items were verified that it was fulfilled. And you can see here, these ones are manually fulfilled, but that gives you a nice overall view of my information came into governance, I performed my governance activities, and then I was able to send those out for provisioning to the connected systems and then verify that those changes were in fact made. So today we showed you a few highlights of the key governance aspects of visibility, of who has access to what, the access modeling and policies that let you establish who should have access to what, and then the enforcement of just seeing those changes in the system and responding to those changes, and then fulfillment and verification, making sure that those changes that we requested actually happened in those connected systems. So these are a few of the ways that our full IGA SaaS capabilities can help you better manage risk and compliance in your organization. And we hope that you'll take a deeper look and discover other ways that these tools can help you leverage your investment in Identity Manager and keep your assets secure.
And thank you everyone for attending today's session. Hopefully this has given you a better understanding of all the benefits you realize when you extend your on-premises identity management solution with Identity Governance SaaS, and of how our hybrid deployment support gives you the flexibility to extend your existing on-premises investment with SaaS-based capabilities, so you can move to SaaS in a way that's right for you and your users and your business and on your timeline.